is it Kyle Rittenhouse, the guy that killed those people during the Black Lives Matter protest? When they found him not guilty, I mean, it wasn't surprising, but the fact that he's on like press runs now, like, I don't know who, for example, but he's been doing like interviews and people have been like, oh, I want him to work for me and this and that, but he literally killed 2 people and half of the people don't even know like how it happened. So it's just, anytime I see him on social media, I have to scroll past it because it just like confuses me and like pisses me off so much.
So the idea for you is that here's a person who, for whatever reason, self-defense, whatever, right? So the law played itself out, right? A self-defense defense, like, okay, fine. But the idea is that he killed 2 people, like, you know what I mean?
With like a big ass gun, how is that self-defense? Like,
no, but hang on. But you don't even have to go there. Like, don't go there. If you go down that road, you start to get into this complicated legalese stuff. But just stay with the simple stuff, right? Here's a young man. He got a big ass gun, and however it happened, he's in this place and he kills 2 people, and now what you're saying, he's being trotted out as this person, like, oh, I want you to work for me, like, and you're saying, like, if you were hiring people, he wouldn't be at the top of your list of people.
At all, no.
Yeah, he wouldn't join the stream team. I mean, yeah, okay, so that's one, right? Like, how do you, like, wait, hang on. Is this the world? Is this the world we want to live in, right? So here's the next question. Is this the world we really want to live in? Where, like, this is the person, somebody gets held up as this whatever, I don't know. Okay, that's a good one, actually. I had a very similar experience. Like, what kind of so-called Christian nation are we, really? So you see that, right? The encounter, right? So, Jace, what are you hearing me say that, like, strikes something inside of you?
Well, something that I have, like, an encounter that I've had that had a similar effect to me was the summer before my senior year of high school. I was able to go to Germany and live there for a month as part of an exchange program. Mm-hmm. And while walking around one of the cities, we saw a political poster. So we asked our chaperones, like, who that was, and they informed us that that was a neo-Nazi politician. Mm-hmm. And so we then proceeded to ask more questions about that, because that's obviously a big deal. Mm-hmm. And found out that there are politicians in Germany who are publicly known and have admitted to being neo-Nazis, as well as others who have not admitted to it.
And your thing was, this is a really good example. Your thing was, how is that possible? Did you go to any death camps while you were there?
We did, yes.
Where did you go? Do you remember?
I can't remember the exact name of it. I think it's Sachsen-Anhausen.
How was that going through that camp?
I don't think there's a way I could describe it. It's, you're looking at the place where thousands of people have died and
were killed.
Yes. And with the camp that we went to, there was only one part of the camp that was remaining, and it was they had a track at the front that had a rock boulder that what they would do is they would test out their boots by putting them on prisoners of the camp and having them walk back and forth until the boots wore down. And they had to carry that boulder behind them.
Dude, it's unthinkable, right?
I would agree, like, with his experience. It's just, like, really eerie, the same way, like, when you visit Washington, D.C., and you see, like the slave ships. It just feels so eerie because you know that people were, I feel like their souls are still there. I know that sounds weird, but it's really creepy. And we went from one concentration camp to another, and they told us how, like, they would force them to walk barefoot from one to another, and the distance was like 13 miles in between them. Yeah. So they had to have been, like, walking for days, and yeah, it doesn't seem real. Like we all know that it's history, but it doesn't feel real.
So for me, I have a very similar experience, right? And the me is like when I see here in the United States, remember the Unite the Right group in Charlottesville, right? And a lot of the folks there were carrying Nazi flags, which are illegal in Germany, by the way, the flag, the swastika, but it's not here. And I would see that, and I think, do you not know what that is, right? Do you not have any idea what that represents? It's like you understand, it represents the massacre of millions of people, right? In the horrific, right? You can't, the Nazis couldn't burn 6 million Jewish people, right? And even today, people still talk, the hatred toward Jews is like, it's the longest hatred in the world, right? It's 2,000 years of hatred. There's no hatred toward any group of people that's longer than the history of the hatred toward Jews, okay? This is called the longest hatred for a reason. And I think like, you are holding a flag that represents not killing just 6 million Jews, but another, 4 or 5 or 6 million people. And I can't hold it in my head how a human being could in any way hold any kind of symbol that would reflect that, right? And it doesn't compute. I don't even get angry. I don't even start screaming. I don't feel sad. It's just an utter state of shock, right? So it's like what you're saying, right? You can't even put words to it.
I think the Sandy Hook shooting was in 2012, and it wasn't like people were recording. It was obviously an elementary school. So like when the news showed like different recordings of them walking through the halls like after the fact, it was like, well, why would they show us that? Like that's really a lot to take in. But last week there was a school shooting and it was on TikTok and it had went viral. And I'm like, we're so desensitized to it because in 2012 we were like, why would they show us that? That's a lot. And now there are kids in their classrooms recording when there's like a school shooter. And in the comments, it was a debate between like whether guns were the problems or bullying. But like the problem is people. Like we need we need mediation. Yeah.
The problem is something that's so big you're left speechless.
Yeah. And
Right.
like it was on TikTok and everybody's like in the comments, some girls were like, well, I'm so happy I didn't come to school this day. And the school knew, like
Yeah.
some kids had informed the school that this kid was talking about for weeks about like
Yeah.
taking matters into his own hands. And yeah.
So the idea, even that, like all that information has to come out still, but just staying with what you're saying is it becomes this thing that we desensitize. It's the encounter, right? The encounter with something about which somehow we're desensitized. And then we have that moment when we go, oh my God, like I'm not even feeling that. I'm not even like, oh my God. And that's what I'm talking about, right? That this is the thing. And these are the moments, right? It's a moment like that, right? These are the moments when our lives change. We make these decisions about how we're going to live our lives. And so I made my decision with Central America. I made my decision when I was in my early 20s. And it didn't change. Like that was it. My life just changed, right? I will never not be engaged talking about this. I was walking down a road in Nicaragua one time, and I came upon this house. The whole front of the house was blown off, and there was an elderly woman sitting in the house, and she yells out to me, "Oye, gringo, ¿dónde vas?" Because I was like the only gringo, the only American anywhere, and so I sat down on her porch like this, talking to her, and I was telling her where I was coming from, where I was going. So she started telling me the story about how her house had been destroyed in the war and different people who had died and so on. And I was leaving and she said, we were talking in Spanish, obviously. And she says, "Hey, gringo." Right? She kept calling me gringo. It's a term of endearment, it's fine. And she said, you're a teacher. And you have to promise something for me, right? And she said, you have to promise me that for the rest of your life, like when you teach, you will tell your students about what happened here and what's happening elsewhere. Like, you need to tell your students that. And I made a promise to her, and I've never broken the promise. There are different promises that I've broken, but that one I never broken, because I've always said that, no, I will continue always to tell people.